Everybody, good morning. It's Sonia, Profiling Manipulation. So back with another question, and today there's quite a few questions tied up within one comment, so I'm going to go through the comment and answer it along the way as I go. So first I'll read the comment out, or the important bits that are wanting some kind of insight or maybe a possible explanation or an answer. Here we go. Right. Can you recommend any books you read whilst you were healing? Also, I want to stop people pleasing and being codependent. A therapist told me I'm both because of how I was raised. I'm 54 and I've been no contact for 15 years. She controlled my life right up until 15 years ago. I just kept going no contact and then going back. Also, she's very old. I've been asked, will I go to her funeral? I said I want nothing to do with it. I never want to see her again, funeral or whatever. That's my right, isn't it? A few friends have mentioned they couldn't do that. Sorry it's so long, but these are all the things I wanted to ask you. Thank you so much, Sonia, for even remembering me. It's late here. Hopefully I can find your instructions and find you tomorrow. And then it goes on a little bit more. Hang on. To say, it's the learning how to stop people pleasing and the codependency that this person really wants advice on. And they go on to say, I feel I have some of that. I'm diagnosed with PTSD and definitely have CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder that can be caused from long-term severe abuse, mental, emotional, psychological or physical, or all the above. I definitely have undiagnosed ADHD. I can definitely relate to that as well. What else does this person say? I'm just flicking through her comment because I want to put a picture over this. I'm going to have a screen over this comment just so I can keep this person anonymous, because some of the things they say, I don't think they'll want them in the video. I was actually lucky to what helped me a lot. I just totally switch off when she was talking a lot of the time. She didn't like that. I regret working her out so late in life, but I just couldn't handle the bullshit anymore. She would play us kids off against each other. I believe she was a psychopath too, in so many ways, and some of the things she has done. I won't go to her funeral. I would love your take on everything. Could you briefly explain also, do you have a link for your Discord? And then they go on to thank me, which you're very welcome. You are very welcome. So if we go back to the beginning, 1 second, I can definitely send you some links. There's two channels in particular I have in mind that helped me so much with my codependency recovery and reframing and reprogramming all the faulty programming that had already been laid down in my brain. Because if we think about the brain in the way of a computer, in childhood, early birth, it's like an empty space, and as that child goes along throughout life, programs and patterns and things are set in place in that child's mind, and then as we grow up we may find that some of these ideas that have been implanted or programmed into us are toxic, unhealthy, they don't serve us, they're out of date, they're unhealthy, things like that. So we do often come to a place as we get to adulthood of evolving and recognizing and seeing all these traits and unhealthy patterns we've picked up along the way, and often we do go through an evolving and we switch those to more healthier things. So the two channels I'm thinking about in particular, I will definitely give you links to both of those. I don't want to share them in the video because I'm cautious. I'm also kind of within a drama community, and I don't want to be going over to places where I go and talk about this kind of stuff where it's very deep and personal to specific channels, and I'm finding all this, the drama community over there kind of thing. So I will definitely send you links to the two channels that I'm thinking about. They are amazing, and I think they will definitely be able to help you in learning new, healthier, more peaceful, more, I don't know, more positive and realistic ideas to hold about ourselves, rather than the ones we've been laid down with from the poor parenting, the toxic parent, the narcissistic parent, whichever. So I will definitely do that for you, okay? And this self-love deficit disorder that we tend to have if we've been raised in abusive or emotionless homes, apart from the screaming and shouting, we do struggle with liking ourselves and loving ourselves. And the thing is, well, in the home, in the household where the child is that's being abused by the parent, it doesn't make us hate the parent. It ends up making us hate ourselves. It's crazy how that happens. And then as we're older, we still have these kinds of attachments where you talk about that you've got no contact 15 years ago, which is fantastic. Excuse me. Absolutely fantastic. I'll be 5 years. I think it's September. Well, I know it's September. I think it's 5 years this year. Yeah, I think it's 5 years. It'll be 5 years in September. So well done for that. Well done for taking control and taking charge and removing yourself from a toxic and unhealthy situation where you're being psychologically abused. Fantastic. You've done the right thing. It's so hard as well to walk away. It's very hard. People shouldn't underestimate. Like when we're talking about these kinds of things around people with healthy homes, they can't relate. I can't talk about this kind of stuff with healthy friends. I can't. And I was actually advised earlier on, because I would just be totally invalidated. Like when I first started trying to speak about my mum to friends and stuff, and I would say, she does this and she says this to me and I don't get it. Like, why is she so nasty? I don't understand. When I would try and talk to friends, these are the answers I would get. Maybe she's tired. She had a bad day. She's your mum. You shouldn't think bad of her. Well, it's your mum. Well, it's your mum. She's allowed to have a bad day. Well, it's your mum. Well, it's your mum. They were the constant excuses that caused me to continue tolerating the psychological abuse, the emotional abuse, the mental abuse, the financial abuse that was going on within my family. So I totally understand when you're saying that friends are saying to you they wouldn't be able to do what you're doing. They're not in your shoes. So to be fair, they shouldn't even have an opinion on it. No healthy child can truly imagine what it's like to be raised within an abusive household and to understand all the entanglements and all the complicated relationships that go on, the dynamics. It's like a house of cards, and you're permanently trying to keep this house of cards from falling in, because any wrong move and you know you're going to get screamed at, abused, something horrible, you're going to have something held against you, or try to be forced to do something to keep the parent happy. No healthy child can relate to our experiences. So from the beginning, for me, it became a boundary to not try and talk about these kinds of things with healthy friends, because they just invalidate me, and they don't mean to invalidate me, okay, but they can't comprehend this kind of thing. They can't comprehend it unless they've lived it, okay? So taking advice off healthy friends for a situation that you're in, you've come more to the right place. If you're seeking out communities, narcissistic abuse survivor communities, you've come more to the right place. There are lots of groups on Facebook. I'm an admin on one that's a rather large group, and if you want me to give you the group, if you'd like to join that kind of a Facebook group, you can be anonymous in there. People help each other. People write posts of the things that they're going through, and then other survivors in the group will share their insight and knowledge. And it's just an amazing, safe place where you've got things in common with these people. They've been through the same experiences, and when you first come into a community of people that have all had the same exact experiences with their parents, even down to the same phrases said, it's uncanny how the playbook for one narcissist is the exact same playbook for every other narcissist. They may look different, they may present different, but the mind games and the sabotage and the triangulation and the blame shifting and the covert manipulation games and all that is within each of them. They play the same games. It's like they're all carbon copies of the other. So I wouldn't take the advice of healthy friends discussing this kind of a subject. I know when it comes to that day, because this is a whole entire subject within the abuse survivors community, when it comes to be my day where it's my parent that's possibly passed away, I won't go to the funeral, okay? I already know now I won't go to the funeral. That person and that life wasn't real. It was all what I thought it was. It wasn't. And to keep things factual, she wasn't a mother. She was a birth giver to all of her children. Not one of us did she nurture. And just looking at my siblings and some of the issues that they've got and some of the problems and troubles that they've had, I mean, it breaks my heart. Some of the things I've witnessed happen to them, never mind me, some of the things I've witnessed happen to them over the years, I can't. It's not necessarily about the forgiving, but I can't let that go enough, I mean, even if I was to try and stay in their lives, like my birth givers, right? There's no attachment there. There's no affection there. I'm wanting something she's incapable of giving. It's easier for me to accept that she can't give it and keep asking for it or expecting it is only going to cause me more emotional pain. So from the walking away, the no contact, it's no contact forever. That's the decision. And every day I have to live with that decision. Every day I have to live with the hurt. Every day I have to live with remembering the pain. It's a hard road. So to have got to 15 years, I think you've done excellent. And to have stuck to it, that's fantastic, because it is so tragic, hurtful, heartbreaking, all the terrible things. It is all of that, because you've had the image of what you thought family is supposed to be, like on the Hallmark birthday cards or something. And all that image is just smashed into 1,000 tiny little pieces. It doesn't exist. The gaslighting, you learn from unraveling all the gaslighting, just how conditioned you are, that what is going on around you is normal. That's the most horrifying thing, I think, to come to learn. So I understand you not wanting to go to the funeral. I would not be going to my birth giver's funeral either. But saying that to healthy people, they would likely think, you must be an evil child walking away from your mother and you're not even going to go to a funeral. They don't know that she used to let her partners abuse us, beat us, hit us, kick us, hit us so hard. I don't know. I got hit so hard I fell into the bath. Like, he just kept smacking me, punching me until I just kept going back, trying to move and dodge, and he'd get me, and then he hit me that hard I fell into the bath. The stuff she stood by and let go on, the sexual abuse that went on, the torment, the taunting, the cutting us off, the financial abuse, all of it. They don't see all that. They just see a person saying that they're not going to go to the parents' funeral. And for that person, yeah, I can understand why they would think you must be a terrible daughter, or you were a terrible daughter, or you are a terrible daughter, when it's just not the case. For my own sanity, going to a funeral of somebody that's abused me doesn't make any logical sense whatsoever. The fact that she bore me, I mean, you can bear a child and give it up for adoption, okay? She bore her children and abused them and let her partners abuse them all the way through to adulthood. So what kind of respects do I have to pay to that person after they've passed? That should I be thankful? Okay, should I be thankful to her for the life that she raised me into? What should I be? What should I be? As far as I'm concerned, generally speaking, I feel indifference towards her. But if I have to get talking about a subject, or I'm trying to explain something or a specific situation that happened, I'm now seeing it through insightful eyes. So yeah, I probably do sound angry, and you can probably still tell there's pain there. When does the pain from abuse go away? Nobody yet has an answer. It never goes away. You just learn to live with it. So for me, in my humble opinion, I totally understand why that is your decision. And again, in my opinion, I totally understand why that is the right decision. What respects have you got to pay to this person after they've gone? There isn't any. And they try to use as well, this is one of the most painful subjects in this entire subject, is when they start to get old and frail, and people are saying, it's your mum, she's old, she could die, and they've no idea how evil they still are. Because of course it's the mask's on when other people are around. It's when other people aren't around that the mask comes off, and this, what you might think looks like this sweet old lady, turns into an evil witch, hell-bent on driving you as far as suicide. They don't stop, okay? They only get worse with age as well. The older they get, the worse they get, the more narcissistic they get. So this, and then they use, they're expert manipulators. They use their being frail and they're being old and they're being, you know, they've lived longer than they're going to, that point in life. They use those elements to manipulate you, to keep you around, but to continue abusing you at the same time. So I think you're on the exact right track. Just let me double check the other side of the other part of the... You ask for some books, some recommendations on books. I can definitely send you some good recommendations that I have read, or possibly some more recent that I haven't read. But I can definitely send you some recommendations of some amazing books that will blow your mind. One of them that I can think of right now is by Pete Walker, and the book is called Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. I would recommend everybody read that book, okay? It's fantastic. I think I've covered everything that you've mentioned. I'm just quickly scanning through. You want some books to read whilst healing? Oh, and you want to stop with the people pleasing and the being codependent. I can give you some tips there, some tips that I've learned. And you can actually Google CBT, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy. The problem with narcissistic abuse is there's not enough professionals to deal with us because there's that many of us. I had a quote out of an article that I wish I could find it, or probably remember it more accurately, but it went something like this. Psychologists and psychiatrists were getting a lot of people all presenting the same symptoms, okay? Symptoms of CPTSD, symptoms of trauma, and symptoms of severe emotional pain, right? But they couldn't figure out what was causing these severe issues in these patients, in the clients, okay? Because they were all presenting with these horrendous symptoms of CPTSD, but none of them had been exposed to a war-like situation, so they couldn't understand it. And it was within this that, because they would ask these patients, you know, well, how was your childhood? How was it growing up, right? And most of us, because we're that brainwashed and gaslit, like my mum's favourite phrase was, you had a good childhood. You had... I always used to wonder why she would say that, right? Because she would just say it out of nowhere. You had a good childhood. There was always food on the table and you had a clean bed, right? Within her keep repeating that is an admittance of abuse. Because she's specifically saying there that all I ever was required to do for you was give you food and put you in a bed. That's it, okay? So all the rest of it doesn't matter. You had a good childhood, because all a good childhood consists of is being fed and having a clean bed. So she would gaslight and condition us, and she used to repeat these odd things over time, over years, as we were growing up and even into adulthood, right? And now I know why she was doing it. She was doing it to counter any kind of knowledge I might come across, to question things, because I had tried to question her about the CSA, okay? And when anybody ever said to me, whenever the subject of childhood would come up, I would find myself repeating those words. Oh, I had a good childhood. You know, there was always food on the table and we always had clean beds to get into, right? And it took me well into my 20s to recognise I was repeating this phrase from her. And it wasn't even a factual truth. It wasn't something I'd experienced, right? I was repeating what she drummed into my head. So within that, these psychiatrists and psychologists that were dealing with these patients, these clients, as they began to explore further and ask them more deeper questions, because they were saying things like, yeah, my childhood was fine. I was hit a couple of times, but I wasn't, you know, beaten black and blue every day. Like, well, what's causing the hypervigilance, the cortisol, the fight or flight state that these patients and clients are describing or being within a state of? And as they explored deeper, hello, narcissistic abuse. It's a covert abuse, and the symptoms, the damage done to the people using this kind of manipulation, this kind of pathological manipulation, presents symptoms after, you know, a period of time of suffering it with complex PTSD symptoms. That's how I believe or understand CPTSD came to be, okay? There were patients all displaying these kinds of symptoms of war, okay? Like being in fight or flight, or being super hypervigilant, which I am, and probably you can relate to being, and it's hard to turn off. The sensory overload that we experience, like if you were to go into a shopping centre, the lights hit you, the crowds of people hit you, the smells hit you, all the different talking hits you. It just becomes a sensory overload, and that's why most of us end up avoiding public places or places during the day that are known to be busy, because I do that. It's habit now that I nip out to the store in the evening because I know it's going to be quieter, and I go when I know people have got home from work, so they're not going to be on the road either. So anyway, they come to find out that these people, when they actually explored and asked excuse me, specific questions, none of these people had had a good childhood, right? The abuse and the gaslighting was that good, they weren't even aware of what had been happening to them, if that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining it right. So if a narcissist, I've got the statistics and all the numbers on one of my Twitters, right? I wish I had it handy right now. But if you think about it, if a narcissist goes through life, right, and they are in a relationship for 3 years with a partner, and they abuse that partner, and after that 3 years they go on and meet somebody else, start a family possibly, and they're with that partner 5 years, and then there's the friends around them, the people that are around them. If they go on again to have another relationship, within 15 years they could have had about 4 relationships, possibly more, and left all these people in a state of therapy because of the abuse, this psychological abuse. Okay, so it begins to become a drain on the system. So for most of us survivors, it ends up being that we have to self-therapy, we have to study, we have to research, we have to join groups, and we have to educate ourselves, because the system, the mental health system, without all this narcissistic abuse, is overrun anyway, completely overrun. There's not enough staff to manage our problems, to talk to about our problems. I mean, here, I don't know if you're in the UK or not, but if you're in the UK, you can refer yourself to Mind, M-I-N-D. Just go on their website, mind.gov.uk it would be, I think. And you can actually refer yourself, which is a process I've been through a couple of times. And you get, I think it's about 16 or 18 weeks of therapy. However, you're on a waiting list. And the waiting list, I think, one time it was about 18 months I had to wait to be seen. And so a lot of it is this self-therapy. So the tips for codependency and people pleasing, I would recommend that you Google and research cognitive behavioural therapy, CBT. It was designed or created by a psychologist whose name evades me right now. Look into that and those kinds of practices, because that helped me. Again, joining a Facebook group is beneficial, a narcissistic abuse awareness group. But join the right one, because obviously we've got narcissists now running channels talking about narcissistic abuse. We've got narcissists running self-help groups. We've got narcissists running coaching channels on YouTube. We've got narcissists running Facebook survivor groups. I mean, it's just only join one that you've been given like a recommendation to join. All right, so I will give you a recommendation for some authentic Facebook groups. But again, with the people pleasing, some of the things that you can consciously do every day are things like repeating the positive self affirmations and feeding those healthy words into your mind. You won't notice a difference at first, okay, but if you can sit and look in a mirror and say to yourself, I am worthy, I am enough, phrases like that 5 times, 3 times a day, okay, and keep trying to do it every day. If you can't do it every day, don't beat yourself up. We need to another thing you can look at for yourself is improving our self-dialogue within us, our internal self-dialogue. So if you're a person that possibly says, Oh, you're always stupid, you're just pathetic, I don't even know why you bother, you're a waste of fresh air, you're a waste of breath, you're a waste of this, you're just nothing, you can't do anything, look at where you are. If you're a person that has that kind of inner dialogue, usually, not always, but often we find that inner dialogue are words that we've heard growing up a lot. And those of us that are from narcissistic families tend to have this kind of internal dialogue. It's like this self-hating, self-abusing, self-shaming dialogue, okay? So even when they're not around us, excuse me, they've trained our brains by now in adulthood to abuse ourselves, to sabotage ourselves, to never get ahead, to avoid being successful. They're all the things that they've been implanting in our brain all the way through childhood. So that's why oftentimes we do find adulthood and being an adult and managing life as an adult difficult, because they've not given us any coping skills, any learning skills, nothing. They've not helped us. All it's been is about sabotaging. So improving inner dialogue and reframing, we can do a lot of that as well by ourselves. In the meantime, while we're waiting for therapy or we're doing research and things like that, we can reframe things to be more factual instead of how the narcissistic parent has implanted them. So, for example, if I was to think, do you know what, like my sister hates me or something, right? If that was the cause, my sister hates me. She just hates me. Factually, this would be more a case of she's been manipulated just as you have her entire life to sabotage your sisters, to compete against the sisters, to step over her sisters, right? To have those kinds of ideas in her mind. So it's not about my sister hating me. My sister factually has been conditioned to hate her siblings, just as I was conditioned to hate them and always feel like they were a threat, or that I needed to compete, or that they were better than me, those kinds of ideas. So there's some of the little things that we can do while we're waiting for therapy, in the middle of therapy, whatever. And you can even talk to them with your therapist, mention these kind of techniques to your therapist. I think I may have covered everything at this point. Just let me give it one last scan. I've gone on the books. So yeah, so if you do a lot of researching, newer psychologists, well, not newer that they're new, they've been psychologists a long time, but some of the newer teachings and schools of thought within codependency specifically, like there's so much research going on into this right now about all this people pleasing and fixer behavior. So I would try Googling self-love deficit disorder, because that's becoming the newer name codependent is being known by. So I'll repeat that again, self-love deficit disorder. So if you do some searches on that, and possibly some videos will come up or some links, I would check that out. You might find that helpful and really informative, possibly. So I think I've reached the end. If you do have any more questions, you can contact me on Discord, or if you want to leave a comment under the video, feel free to do so. Thank you so much for your question. If anybody has any insight that they could possibly share or add to this, feel free to leave it below. And until next time, love lots and bye for now.